Hey everyone, Kevin here with Divinely Designed, and I have a paper crafting video with Heartfelt Creations' new release, the classic Rose stamps and dies. I got them today and I was very excited. At first, I kind of thought they might be a lot like the classic vintage floret, but these are much smaller. They offer a lot more options. And of course, they did a paper pad release with it, which is really pretty. It goes along, coordinates with all their stamps and dies in that same release. Now, the blog over at Heartfelt Creations has lots of projects, really beautiful ones, lots of colorful flowers. I thought I would take mine in a little different direction and do them in white. I'm going to start off by using some Versamark to stamp the stamps, and then I'm going to emboss them with Ranger's Platinum embossing powder here. I was going to use silver, but I thought the platinum would give it a little more vintage kind of look. I'm going to cut them out with their coordinating dies. This one has, this particular stamp set has 4 dies, 3 for the flowers and 1 for the leaves, and I'll work on the leaves a little bit later. But once I've cut them all out, or embossed them and then cut them all out, I moved on to shaping them. And I started with just spraying them with a little water to sort of loosen up those fibers, and then I'm using the shaping tool to shape my flowers. Now, there are lots of videos out there on shaping the flowers. This particular one I'm doing right now is sort of a classic, more along the vintage floret kind of shaping. But I did go on to shaping the roses a little bit more rose-like. And in just a few seconds here, I'll have a slowed down portion of my video where I focus on the flower shaping for that sort of more classic rose shape. But I ended up cutting out a bunch of the flowers, making them up in different sizes. Some of them were open, some of them were closed, some I made into little buds, but I had sort of a whole bunch that I made into not really knowing how many I was going to actually use on the card itself. Now here's a little bit slower portion, just focusing. That is more of the sort of classic rose shape from these. And I start by focusing on the back of the flower and just using the ball stylus. This is the 4mm ball stylus, just on the edge on the back in order to curl the very edge of that petal. So I want it to curl backwards. Then I'm going to flip it over and using the larger ball stylus make that cup shape in the petal. And here's the thing I found most helpful was to use my fingers to actually help the top of the leaf sort of curl back and kind of make that classic rose kind of triangle shape on their leaf, and using the ball tool at the same time to push inward so I get that cupped leaf shape in the bottom of the leaf, and then a curled top on the top portion. And you could use the curling tool here as well, I think, but my fingers worked well for the larger of the flowers. And this is what I ended up with, a bunch of different roses, some of them in sort of that classic shape, some in an open shape, some I did smaller, and then I did use the Spectrum Noir clear to give them a little bit of sparkle. Moving on to the leaves, I wanted these to have a little bit of a different look, so I stamped them in some archival ink, and then I used some, I think it was old paper distress ink, and I really just sort of tried to smudge the edges of the leaves and leave the middle kind of white. I wanted them to have that, oh, it was antique paper, I think is the name of the distress ink. I wanted them to look a little bit different. I didn't want them white, I wanted them more of an ivory. And I thought that might add a little bit of contrast to the final look when I had the leaves actually next to the flower on the card. So I did the same thing. I stamped a bunch of them, then cut them out using the coordinating dies. And these have some curly cues on them. So in the end result of the card, I end up cutting the leaves apart. This particular one has 3 leaves with some curly cues on it, and it was a little bit, I found it a little bit hard to actually fit into the card. Now, usually what I do is start off by sort of dry laying everything where I think I'm going to put it. And then I'm distressing the edges. I'm using some of the red paper from the paper pack, the Heartfelt Creations Classic Rose paper pack, and just using, I think this is espresso, is the distress ink I'm using just to distress the edges. Then gluing that, I like to, I do a 5x7 card, and I like to uh, glue it onto just a piece of 5x7 cardstock, which I will then later just attach to the 5x7 card itself. It does make for a thicker card, but it also makes for a super sturdy card, and these have a lot of flowers on them, so I like a super sturdy card. So again, just going back to my layout, I had sort of dry laid it. Now I'm using glue to glue everything down. I like to use hot glue when I am adhering these flowers to cards. I like both the strength of it and the quickness that it will dry, so I can put everything in place. Sometimes I need to move leaves around in order to sort of get the flowers exactly where I want them. So I like using hot glue when I'm doing these kinds of cards. I start off mostly with the flower placement, and then kind of as I get toward the end try to figure out where I'm going to put the leaves as well. I wanted them again to break up some of the lines of the flowers, so you don't necessarily have just one flower next to another. Hopefully the leaves help to give it some definition. And there you can see me sort of cutting apart some of the leaves again, and some of the curly cues as well. I just sort of cut them off and stuck them into various places. So I like this. You see in the center there I used another Heartfelt Creations die for that kind of doily oval. And then I made this other piece that has the sentiment on it, just with an oval cutout that I had attached some ribbon to kind of give it that vintage feel. And I really like the final look of it. And here are a couple of still pictures. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have any comments or questions, leave them below. I will be happy to try and answer them. And that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great weekend, everybody.